Hello guys, Art-Teeves here. This video is a bit of a departure from my usual content. I typically focus on stylized, almost cartoony models, but today I am excited to share a simple technique for creating retrofuturistic animations, think glowing displays for sci-fi gadgets or HUDs. These are easy to use tools you can access right in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. Since this video is a bit different, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more content like this on my channel. And if you are new here, welcome. Please be my guest and subscribe for more stylized content. In this video, I am modeling objects in 3ds Max, animating them and creating basic materials in Marmoset toolbag. Then I polished the rendered video in DaVinci Resolve using free plugins like Supermodulation and Superglitch from Ecospace. Now full disclosure, this isn't the easiest workflow out there. You could do everything I'm doing in 3ds Max or Blender alone. You could even skip DaVinci entirely and process a static render in a free neural network for potentially better results. That said, I'm not presenting this pipeline as the ultimate method to follow step by step. Instead, think of it as a creative approach to experimenting with retrofuturistic displays and HUD elements. Want to take a shortcut? You can find free models online, turn them into glowing wireframes and process a static render in a neural network to add subtle rotations or effects. Neural networks are great because they instantly generate effects based on your prompts. Unfortunately, some awesome DaVinci features, like lens distortion for convex screen effects, chromatic aberration removal or high-quality CRT emulation, require the paid version. Still, I'm pretty happy with the look I achieved in about 20 minutes, even as a DaVinci newbie. If you are looking for other free ways to nail this aesthetic, YouTube is full of great tutorials. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. One thing to keep in mind if you use neural networks, consistency is key. Your prompts need to align with the assets you create in other software to avoid a mismatched look. Sometimes it's easier to do everything manually, but I suspect that will change as tech evolves. I know neural networks can be a polarizing topic, and I get why. There's something satisfying about crafting things with clear intent and control. That said, I am all for using the best tools for the job when they make sense. But don't worry, no neural networks were used in this video. A quick side note, if I were designing a HUD for a project, I wouldn't stop at a single planetary element. I'd export it and combine it with other HUD components for a richer display. For the model, I used 3ds Max's generate topology function to create something like energy zones or patterns on a planet. Options like skin, holler or chaos work well here. After applying an inset to the polygons, you can either keep the gaps or delete the bridges connecting them. Using the random function in the select tab, you can pick say 25% of polygons for variation. You can keep the object flat if you are only showing the front, with backface culling, or give it thickness using the shell modifier and a few rounds of turbo smooth. Line thickness isn't critical since you can enhance it with glow and blur effects, just don't go overboard. By the way, this is just one way to speed things up. You can also paint directly on a sphere in Substance Painter by making it transparent and using a mask revealing brush. I might cover that in a future video. For less chaotic designs, try creating 3 spheres in your modeling software, unwrapping them, and painting unique details on each in, say, Substance Painter. If their centers align but their radii differ, you can create a height map-like effect. This wireframe to spline technique isn't limited to spheres. Try it on a low-poly spaceship or submarine for a sci-fi vibe. Topology and UVs don't matter here, even with millions of polygons. Our goal is to turn a chaotic shape into a retrofuturistic sci-fi goodness. I forgot to animate my planets in 3ds Max, so I set up a simple turntable animation in Marmoset, looping the planets endlessly. For variety, I made a green grid and red anomalies rotating in opposite directions. In Marmoset's camera settings, I added glow, cranked up roughness, and boosted emissive to make the red effect pop against the green grid. To avoid confusion about the planet's rotation, I added a subtle black fog to dim the back of the sphere. For rendering, I made sure to check the transparent background box in Marmoset so I could export the clip to DaVinci, Premiere, Movavi, or After Effects. Like I mentioned earlier, everything I'm doing in 3ds Max and Marmoset can be done more easily in whatever software you're using for modeling, especially Blender. The approach I showed could work great for something like a top-down view of a spaceship, highlighting shield status or damaged sections. Instead of rotating the animation, you could add flickering red zones for effect. Keep in mind, what I am showing here is a simple animated clip, and it might not be the most efficient choice depending on your project. For example, if you are designing a screen showing a spaceship status for a game character, you'd probably want to use dynamic materials rather than a pre-recorded video. As I mentioned, I didn't bother unwrapping or optimizing the model. Honestly, I could have just painted glowing lines on one or more transparent spheres, the possibilities are endless. When it comes to material settings, focus on a high roughness value, a solid base color, and most importantly, emission and blur settings. Also, consider shortening the animation. You could create a seamless quarter-planet loop, cutting the full rotation clip down to a fourth of its length. DaVinci's learning curve is steep, at least for me, because its interface isn't super intuitive. But what we are doing here is straightforward. In DaVinci, I drag my rendered clip into the Fusion tab and set up nodes like this. Supermodulation, a free plugin you'll need to download. Merge, to blend the original and processed clips. Gaussian blur, for a slight blur. Super glitch, another free plugin. Another merge, and film grain. Add nodes with shift plus space. Next, in the Edit tab, I add an adjustment clip layer and drag effects like scan lines onto it. Back in Fusion, I add soft glow and waviness nodes. That's it. I tweak each node's settings, but I'm not expecting anyone to copy my exact process. This is about sparking ideas for your own retrofuturistic sci-fi projects. A few notes on export settings. I didn't cover this in the video since I focused on a single element, not on a full HUD. If you are uploading to Sketchfab, aim for a resolution of 1K, matching your model's screen dimensions. Use MP4 with H264 codec, 24 to 30 frames per second, and keep it short. 5 seconds is ideal, definitely under 30. You can use a Photoshop sprite sheet, or try Sketchfab's experimental labs features. Game engines handle video much better. Tons of YouTube tutorials cover how to import clips, so I won't repeat that here. For optimization, use resolutions divisible by 4, avoid overly long clips and don't go crazy with resolution. Export as MP4 or AV with H264. In DaVinci Resolve, we're mainly focused on the bottom toolbar. That's where you switch between key editing tools, Edit Panel and Fusion. The rightmost option, Deliver, is where you add your video to the render queue and hit Render All. Fusion is for working with nodes, while in Edit you can apply an adjustment clip to layer effects over your video. Personally, I wouldn't rush from modeling straight to DaVinci. As I mentioned earlier, it's better to prepare text and other HUD elements first, and treat the video as a cohesive whole, not just a single fragment. If I had a paid version of DaVinci, I'd definitely add a lens distortions effect to my clip to bend the image for some kind of a retrofuturistic display, and also add a chromatic aberration removal. The chef's kiss for such a video would involve emulating CRT for the final render of your display. There are many paid and also some free ways to achieve it, and you can easily find the one that suits you on YouTube. I don't want to repeat someone else's content. To be clear, I wasn't aiming for a hyper-realistic video that mimics old-school displays. Instead, I think it's more fun to improvise and create something weird, a kind of sci-fi mumbo-jumbo that still feels vaguely familiar and conveys some information. In this video, I listed all the nodes and effects I applied to my render, but I didn't dive into their individual settings. Truth is, those settings are what shape the final look. Spend some time tweaking the sliders to get the exact vibe you're going for. Still, I never deleted anything from this video, so you can slow it down ever so slightly and see what I do in detail. I think this covers everything I wanted to mention. Thanks for watching, guys. If my videos are of use to you, be my guest and subscribe to my channel for more stylized content. And most importantly, have a great day.